So we know all about the Brock Lesnar and the CM Punks who have gone into the UFC and gone into MMA, but I'm here to talk about pro wrestlers that you probably don't know fought in MMA. And first off, I'm going to start with the most unfortunate case, which is the MMA career of Nick Mitchell. Now, Nick Mitchell was known as Mitch of the Spirit Squad, which was like a stable of like cheerleaders in like 2006 or something like that. And Nick Mitchell's MMA debut, it was a very unfortunate one. It was against this bit of an unknown fighter at the time. He was also making his debut, but a fighter by the name of Derek the Black Beast Lewis. So this guy, Nick Mitchell, gets his first ever MMA fight, and surprisingly, he gets knocked out by Derek Lewis, and then probably thought, well, I'm not cut out for this. Little did he know that he was fighting the man who has the most knockouts in heavyweight history, and I think is tied for the most knockouts in UFC history. Like, what an unfortunate debut to get. Like, nobody knew at the time, like, what Derek Lewis would become. But, you can't hold it against the guy. He never fought again. Apparently, he was scheduled for a bout, but pulled out with injury. And, yeah, never competed in MMA again. But, like, what a shame. Like, but it makes sense. Like, I wouldn't want to fight again, too, if I got brutally knocked out by Derek Lewis. Now, moving on to number 9. I'll be talking about Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura is a professional wrestler who did a lot of his work in the New Japan Pro Wrestling organization and is now in the WWE. So with his whole MMA career, it was while he was also in New Japan, and New Japan had like this weird era where they got all their fighters, like they made all their fighters like fight in MMA, and they were mixing pro wrestling like cards with mixed martial arts bouts too. Like Lyoto Machida actually debuted on a New Japan card. That his first ever MMA fight was actually on a New Japan card called the Ultimate Crush. And Shinsuke Nakamura fought on that card. First for his first bout, he fought Daniel Gracie, and he lost by an armbar at Inoki Bombaye 2002. And Antonio Inoki, I think at the time, was matchmaker for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I think he actually brought upon the whole era of, mixed martial arts bouts on New Japan cards. And then he fought Jan Norsch, a South African kickboxer, mixed martial artist, and undefeated pro boxer. And Shinsuke Nakamura guillotine choked him. He also fought Shane Ifa, a Jungle Fight 1. Wow, in Brazil. That's interesting. He fought on the first Jungle Fight card. Wasn't what I was expecting at all. He shared that card with names like Fabricio Verdum when he defeated Gabriel Gonzaga, Lyoto Machida when he defeated Stephan Bonner. Wow, Mark Schultz apparently fought on this card. I think it might be a different Mark Schultz, because I know he only fought once against Gary Goodrich. And Ronaldo Souza Jacare was also on the card. So, there was like some really big names on this first Jungle Fight card. Obviously, at the time, not the biggest names, but eventually they would, turn into big names. He also had a no contest against Alexei Ingashov, he then rematched him and beat him by forearm choke at a K1 MMA Romax event in 2004. So, he had a decent career. He probably could have, probably gone pretty far. Like, he didn't just beat bad guys. Like, he beat decent competition. Like a lot of them were, kickboxers though. Like, they weren't really MMA fighters they was beating. Like, the only one he really fought was Daniel Gracie. Gracie was 5-4, but I'm sure if he kept trying and kept training, he could have like made a good career of it. But we'll never know. It's in his 40s now, I believe. Yeah, he's 43, so we'll never know. It's too late for him now, but still, he gave it a fair crack. He had a fair good fights out of it, got some nice finishes. And now moving on to number 8. Many people know that Alberto Del Rio had a fight against Mirko Cro Cop where he was wearing like a luchador mask and then he got head kicked, KO'd. So many people know about that, but a lot of people don't know that he actually came back to MMA after that, after his whole WWE career, and he fought Tito Ortiz in a Combatis Americas card, where they had like this stipulation that if Tito Ortiz lost, he would give Alberto Del Rio his UFC belt, and if Alberto Del Rio won, he would give Tito Ortiz his WWE belt. So that was a really strange little agreement they had there, but it was an interesting build. A lot of it was like Tito Ortiz saying like I'm a Trump supporter and all this stuff, and he's a leftist and all this. Like it was a really weird build up. It was it was odd, just to say the least. But then when the fight happened, Tito Ortiz completely ran through him, subbed him in 3 minutes into the fight. It was an easy fight, if we're being honest. Like, it was not competitive at all, but at least he got in there. But Tito Ortiz ran through him, and Alberto Del Rio hasn't fought since, and I don't think he will be coming back. Quite honestly, I don't think we'll be seeing him back in there. He's already 46 years old, and this was 4 years ago, so no way he's getting back in there. So there's that done. Now moving on to number 7. Moving on, now we have David Cash, who in his last fight was 47 years old, and he was better known under the alias as his pro wrestling name as Kid Cash. His pro debut only lasted 39 seconds, and he was KO'd 39 seconds in against Lindsey Jones in a welterweight bout. He also previously fought an amateur fight, losing a decision in Frankfort, Kentucky. He claimed to have had a 7-3 record and mostly unsanctioned fights. There's no proof of this. I haven't found anything to say that, but that's just what he claims. Before his fight, he was actually calling out CM Punk for a bout, saying that he wants to knock him out. But if they could still do that. If they want to fight MMA, he's quite a lot older now. Actually, he's like 53, so probably not a good idea. But if he wants to come in, do something, him versus CM Punk, why not? But yeah, probably not a good idea at all. He wrestled for like promotions like ECW, WWE, TNA. But yeah, MMA obviously didn't go very well for him. He got KO'd with a flurry 39 seconds in. I'd say he retired after that. Yeah, he retired, so it makes sense. He's a bit older to be getting in there anyway. Like 47 is pretty ridiculous to be fighting, but yeah. So moving on. Next, I'll talk about Bam Bigelow. He faced Kimo Leopoldo in a mixed martial arts bout promoted by New Japan in Tokyo in 1996. It was dominated. It was very reminiscent of CM Punk vs. Mickey Gall. Just runs in, goes for a punch, gets taken down, mauled, and subbed. In a 1998 interview, Bigelow claimed that he'd been asked to throw the fight and that he'd been paid $100K, equivalent to $186,590 in 2022 for the fight. Now, honestly, I don't believe that. Like, Kimo wouldn't need you to throw the fight. Like, he was a good fighter himself for the era. Like, you wouldn't need to throw a fight to get him a win. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It seems a bit far-fetched. I think he was just saying it for his own ego's sake, because he was a pro wrestler, so he has to keep that tough guy image and everything. So him saying it's a fix is probably like just him to still have that tough guy image, so he can get matches and stuff like that. But I don't think it didn't look very fake. Like Chemo put a beating on him on the ground, cut his eyebrow, and yeah, just subbed him like very dominantly. No, but yeah, I wish it would have been cooler if we got to actually see him do something, but he just immediately gets mauled. Very reminiscent, like I say, of the CM Punk Mickey Gall fight. So moving on, I'll be talking about a more successful case of a combat, like a WWE wrestler becoming a combat athlete. Gentleman Jack Gallagher, real name Oliver Westfield Clafley. He originally, before getting into pro wrestling, he actually had some amateur MMA bouts where he went 2-0, winning his fights by submission. And then he actually signed with bare knuckle boxing, where he came in and he got a third round, knockout against Rick Kursos, and it was a fun fight. I watched that one actually, and it was pretty fun. He actually trained Taekwondo at a young age and continued until the age of 16. And then got into his pro wrestling. But at the age of 20, he picked up catch wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, in order to supplement his pro wrestling skills, which in turn piped his interest in mixed martial arts. But he also decided to go pro in December of 2022, and it didn't go too well for him. He got TKO'd in the first round by Marlon Jones at Full Contact Contender 32. But he had some success. If he probably didn't go into pro wrestling and he just focused on MMA, he could have probably done some things, But, he's still young. He's 33, like not super young, but he could still have some more fights, But very interesting case there. As yeah, he had all these like amateur fights, and I think he got signed to the UFC the same year. Not the UFC. He got signed to WWE the same year. So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if he didn't get signed to the WWE when he did. He probably would have kept fighting, and who knows. He was scheduled to fight up at featherweight and face Yasin Chatu at Hexagon 8 on the 3rd of June of this year, but however, the event was cancelled due to bad weather conditions. Very interesting indeed. Now, moving on. Oh, these weird fights. So, a pro wrestler named Jushin Liger, who he would wear a mask for his matches. He was booked as a replacement for a MMA fight in the Pancrase organization against Minasu Zuzaki due to his planned opponent pulling out due to injury. And this was an interesting fight. I watched this one. He threw some weird jabs, went for like a rolling thunder type thing, missed, and just got top mounted, beat the shit out of and subbed while wearing his mask, which is very interesting. I guess he wasn't going to make a career out of it, so I guess he didn't want to jeopardize his whole like pro wrestling thing with his mask and everything. But it was very interesting to see a man fight with his mask on. But you see it a lot with with a lot of luchadors who get into like MMA, like Alberto Del Rio before when he fought with his mask. But yeah, it's very dangerous to do that. But he did it. It was a very interesting match. That's all I'm going to say. That's the best word I can use to describe it. It's just very interesting. Very interesting indeed. But yeah, he gave it a go. And hey, maybe he's the reason that Rolling Thunder is such a popularized move, because now everybody does it. So, maybe he did what others were scared to do, and it didn't work out for him. But hey, you can't fault the guy for that. Now, moving on. Now, this one's a very interesting case. Bart Gunn. Now, he fought in a thing called the Brawl for All, which was like when WWE decided to do real fights. It was a really interesting skill set and everything that they had in there. So they had them wear boxing gloves, but they allowed them to also wrestle and go for takedowns, but they weren't really allowed to do anything with the takedowns. They just got points for getting the takedowns. It was a really weird rule set they had there, but he ended up winning the whole thing. And, he beat guys like Steve Williams, The Godfather, and John Bradshaw, and the WWE weren't happy with him because they wanted this Steve Williams guy to win, but obviously that didn't happen because it was real and it wasn't, scripted. And I guess Bart Gunn had some boxing experience or boxing training, and he just like ran through everybody. And the WWE, to punish him pretty much, they booked him in a legitimate boxing match against Butterbean, who proceeded to knock him out in 30 seconds. And then he was soon released after that. So yeah, that was a bit of a rough thing that they did to him. He won a tournament that was not scripted, and because he won it, they weren't happy with that, so they got him in there against fucking Butterbean, like a legitimate boxer, like with KO power, who he's knocked out many actual trained boxers who like do it for a living. So yeah, it was a bit of a rough thing they did to him, but yeah, but he decided to make an actual career out of MMA, or at least dip his tootsies in there. So he fought Wesley Catbridge Carrera in a fight at Rumble on the Rock Beatdown on June 17th, 2006, and he actually won this fight by TKO due to a large cut that he caused Carrera to suffer. And then, in his second and final fight, he faced Iguchi Minowa at Pride Bushido 13, losing by unanimous decision. So, yeah, very interesting. Very interesting that the WWE decided to throw him against Butterbean. And, hey, he made a career. He beat Wesley Carrera. It's not a bad win. Wesley Carrera also lost to Butterbean, so, they share that. And now moving on. Speaking of Butterbean, we're going to talk about Sean O'Haire, who had an MMA match against Butterbean. Yeah, that's right. What a weird... Butterbean's really got it out for the pro wrestlers. So, yeah, he didn't go much better than Bart Gunn did against Butterbean. He got knocked out in 29 seconds. So, yeah, it was a bit of a rough go of things. 29-second KO. But also, he actually debuted against Tony Towers, and he won by guillotine choke. He also beat Shungo Omaya at Rumble on the Rock 6 in 2004. He lost to Kim Min-soo, who fought Brock Lesnar back in the day for Brock Lesnar's MMA debut. Fought quite a few people, actually. Fought Mighty Mo, Don Fry, Sammy Schultz, Ray Sefo, Bob Sapp. So yeah, this guy fought a few people, but he beat Sean O'Haire. And then after the Butterbean fight, Sean O'Haire would go on to beat Daryl Wood by KO, and then beat Frankie Parkman by KO. So, he had some good striking. He also had a kickboxing career, but it didn't really go too well for him. He lost to Mishishi by KO. He lost to Gary Goodridge by KO. He lost to Shalid Arab by KO. Lost to Justice Smith by KO. So, yeah, he took quite a bit of damage in that kickboxing career. But, yeah. Still, he got some tough fights. Like, Butterbean's always going to be a tough fight. But, yeah, the guy gave it a go. You can't really fault him for it. Now, moving on to our final entry on this list is Kenny Omega, who wrestles for, I think he wrestles for AEW or New Japan Pro Wrestling, I'm not quite sure, but now this is a really interesting case, which you'll notice with the photo I'm going to put up of him, that it says on Tapology and Sherdog and all this stuff that he had a fight against Dan Severn, but if you actually look at the fight, I'm almost certain this fight was a fix. Like, he's slamming him like a pro wrestler. Like, it's in a ring as well, like a pro wrestling ring. It's very pro wrestly. It was also for a promotion called Action Wrestling Entertainment. So I'm almost certain this fight was, fixed. But he also, according to, his MMA record on Sherdog, he beat Mark Cantrell by TKO, Jeremy Horman by TKO. He subbed Larry Zuzkestra. Oh my god, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. He subbed Larry. Larry got rear naked choked. Sorry, Larry. Clayton Swanson got KO'd. And then he lost by TKO to Travis Fulton and Brett Jensen by submission, which ended his career there. Now, he's spoken about his career and all this stuff, but there's like, I don't know, there's weird, there's like conflicting stories about like his career, but I think he did have a career. Like, I know he had a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. He did a lot of Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. Apparently, some of these matches were actually, some of these fights on his record were Jiu-Jitsu matches, which I'm not quite sure about. It seems like a weird thing, but I guess back in those ages, records were they were always getting tampered with and they were getting changed and everything. But I thought I'd just include him just because he does have like an actual Sherdog and Tapology record. So I'm imagining he's at least had one fight or two. Like, that Dan Severn one definitely was a fix though, but a lot of Dan Severn's fights were like that and during that time. But I'm certain he at least had a fight. But I mean, they could have been fixed as well. I can't really see them, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. I'm just gonna add this to it anyway, just because he's got a record and everything on Tapology. But yeah, he didn't end up going the MMA route. He ended up, sticking to pro wrestling. But I thought, he gave it a go. What can you do? Like, you got to at least try it. 4-3. He had a positive record at least. But anyway, I guess I'll end it there. There's 10 pro wrestlers you probably didn't know fought in MMA. So thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Put on them notifications. Come on, let's get me in that algorithm. Next big thing. But nah, thanks for listening. I appreciate it.